have Dave Klug here, who's the 2025 Lifetime Achievement Award winner for UCA. And we're happy to have a discussion about some of the things that influenced your career, Dave, and also a little bit about where you see the industry going in the future. And one of the things I think we'd be interested in is, what were some of the biggest challenges when you got into the business, into the industry, that occurred when you were getting started?
Well, I started in May of 1977. I went to work for a company called Commercial Shearing. They were based in Youngstown, Ohio, and they made steel support systems, circular rings, liner plates, and things of this nature. That's how I got into the business on the supply end of things. I worked for them and successor companies through about 1996, and then I started my own company. And one of the things that we saw, it occurred, I talked about it in my acceptance speech. There was two major things that changed the underground support, or the underground tunneling industry. One was precast segmental linings. Okay, what that allowed was the safer support. Before then, everything ribs and boards of junk linings with digger shields, compressed air, things of this nature. They weren't very safe. Frequently had face blow ins and things. You went around at that time, Mike. And segments, and the predecessor to them was segments, but you had to have some way to install them in the tunnel. And Richard Lovett was one of the innovators on that with his earth pressure balance machines. He started the use of those in the upper Midwest, Chicago, Milwaukee, Cleveland, and it was much safer. Is that the workers were never really then exposed to the ground. There was always the rotating head in the front that supported the face, the can of the TBM and the segments. And that really improved worker safety and productivity. And then the advancement on that was Heron Connect came along, and segment technology improved with better sealing systems. I remember being underground on a job in Washington, D.C. This was down by the Navy Yard. They were putting up segments and they were using pry bars and sledgehammers. The erector system wasn't really engineered properly to lift the segment up and move it into place, so the workers were having to take and pry it into place. Heron Connect came along with their technology on the slurry machine and better segment handling systems, and allowed for the more innovative use of precast linings. So that has really advanced where we're at today. Sophisticated TBM, sophisticated tunnel linings, worker safety. I'm getting reports they can build rings in about 20 minutes.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
Without any worker exposure. That to me is a big thing. The other item that changed the industry was NATM or SEM, New Austrian Tunneling Method. This was in Washington, D.C. It came in 83. I was involved in the project. WMATA B10A and B. It was a station and running tunnels. It was done by Ilbau, and it was the first use of NATM, of shotcrete waterproofing, cast in place final lining. And that was really innovative. And I told the story afterwards. I talked to Walt Mertelsberg at a dinner about why he allowed for the introduction of NATM. It was done by Ilbau through a value engineering. It wasn't specified. It was brought in by an international company. And one of the things that really bothered me was American consulting engineers were reluctant to investigate and incorporate that. But Walt said the reason he approved NATM was they gave an engineered solution for a dry tunnel. It wasn't just shotcrete, it was the shotcrete, waterproofing. The profile of the tunnel was designed to minimize stresses, so they went unreinforced, and they were quite successful at that. And he said the waterproofing, the dry tunnels saved WMATA millions of dollars a year in maintenance because the water was coming in, it had high calcite deposits, it would erode the electrical components, and they were always changing things in downturn. he said the jobs that went NATM, they had long-term serviceability. So those are two big things, I think, that changed our industry. Those are always being refined. Now we're going through that right now. If you'll go downstairs and go through the displays, the technology for segments of using dowels instead of bolts, allowing things to put up. I have a saying on that. We in the dressed nicely in nice air-conditioned offices, we have to come up with a solution that allows some poor guy on a cold winter night at 3 o'clock in the morning to install a system where he doesn't have to think. The system has to go in place on a repetitive basis without a whole lot of thought or making a decision. Because these people don't do it. He's got somebody screaming at him, I want production, production, production. It's our job is to come up with a system that is repetitive and works and builds a high quality end product. And I think we're getting there.
Dave, do you think the evolution of how that has progressed over the last 2 or 3 decades, and particularly in the last 10, 15 years, has surprised you in any way as far as how far we've advanced in change? You know, for example, used to be mostly segmental linings would be used for weak soils and weak rock, and now hard rock, and we're putting segments in and using that as a one-pass system.
One of the things with segments is it's one and done, meaning at the end of the shift, the lining is put in as a permanent lining. Nothing else has to be done. We have a project right now bidding in New York City called 2nd Avenue Phase 2. And there it's 40,000 PSI rock, and they're installing 10,000 PSI segments. Why is this? Because segments allow them to excavate, support, grout, and they go through once. With all the labor costs in New York, going through multiple periods of time costs a heck of a lot more money. And so that's the reason they're using segments. Schedule, you know, anything you can do to reduce the schedule. Everybody needs to look at time, but you have to do it successfully. You just can't whack off things. You have to evaluate the system. One of the problems we have in our industry is we have people designing systems and they don't understand the total ramifications of what they're doing. If a designer has to understand, okay, if I do this, this is a downstream ramification. Okay, if I put something in a segmental lining, okay, that's going to improve this, but maybe I can't do that.
Right.
Okay, you have to understand the total system, not just your little area of expertise. And one of the things that happens is there's a lot of resources out there. There's my company, there's Heron Connect. People need to reach out to them and talk to them. Okay, what is the current technology? Our business is an international business. A lot of the things we're doing here in North America are proven elsewhere in the world. There's people that bring the technology. That's what I make a very good living, bringing technology from around the world through Optimus on the connectors, CTS quarters, proven technology. We bring it here. Mike's sitting here and he'll tell me is that he can't put something in unless there is a track record for it, a reference. Well, we provide international references. It's an international business. It's not just a domestic business. The tunnel business uses technology proven throughout the world.
Right, and I think not only with the international business community and the cross relationships of experiences elsewhere, you also have the benefit of, I think, with the change in the alternative project delivery systems, working the engineers, contractors, and owners working together on a project to more expeditiously try to come up with a solution that works for everybody. And it's
project delivery systems, there's multiple systems out there, the CMAR, construction management risk, design build. Design build has some, the industry is not really crazy about that because the owner spends 2 years designing something and creates a design build package and puts it out, and they want the contractor to 2 or 3 months, do a design and bid it.
Right.
And they don't disclose everything. We've had problems in the industry of owners not being open in the information they obtain. So design build, that's subject for discussion. Design bid build appears to be a prevalent, if the owner can deal with it. Progressive design build, I think we have some things going on with that, but right now, there's some projects where that's not appears to be working out too well.
Right. Yeah. I think it gets back to the cost certainty that the
Cost certainty, yeah.
have issues with relative to alter project.
And one of the problems we have in the industry is we need the owners to get more involved. They have to be more knowledgeable. Okay, they need to be involved in the contracting model evaluation. They need to be involved in the quality development of the quality control program. They have to be in charge. They want to delegate it because most owners want to throw their hands up and say, I want to push that off, push the risk downstream. You can't do that. I remember being in one of my European tunnel seminars. We were visiting a project in Austria, and the presentation was being given by the area manager for OBB, which is the Austrian railway system. And one of the Americans asked, do you have a DRB, Disputes Review Board? And his response was very good, rather amusing. He says, why in the hell do I need a design review board? I own the ground, I own the tunnel, I will make the decisions of what goes on. That's the difference. They were in control. They knew what they were doing. They were a very knowledgeable owner. If you study the history of projects on them, I was involved in a history book. The successful jobs are the ones where the owner becomes knowledgeable. The knowledgeable owner works well to solve a lot of problems. He's an arbiter of issues that come up because he's the guy that's going to have to pay.
He's fully engaged.
He has to be fully engaged. He has to understand. He has to hire competent people to manage the job for him. He can't go out and get somebody off the street that did bridges and then put him on a tunnel project. And that has occurred.
That has, agreed.
That has occurred. And the jobs did not work out well.
Seeing how the industry's evolved, and I think evolved quite quickly over the last several decades, where do you think we're going as an industry? What do you think the future lies in the tunneling industry and the challenges associated with it?
Society is going to be demanding more complex jobs. Someone said a good line, the easy tunnels have already been built, but I don't know if that's true. It's where does society want us to go? Do they want clean water? They want the sewage treated? They want subways built in congested areas. Our industry is the people to do that. There's another area I find very interesting. You look at other parts of the world, they're building utility tunnels to put high power utility lines underground. I think that's a big market for us. We look at California. If you look at the money they spent on high-speed rail, and that's all gone, they could have put all the tunnels underground for the high-power electric lines. There's opportunities there. Where are we going? Technology is going to come. It's not going to come from the government. It's going to come from private enterprise. It's going to come from Heron Connect, their technology on building the machines. We need to have a pretty good handle that keeps improving on geotechnical investigations.
Right.
We need to find out what's there so your company can design the lining, right?
Right.
If you know what's there, you can design something accordingly. So we need to gather information. We need to have machines that work safely and more productive. Are we going to be able to say, well, we will improve production and safety, but I think through the last 10 years, I've seen a big increase in worker safety, quality of the workmanship, the quality of the end product.
Right.
We have to do a better job. Now how do you get there is a big discussion. The contracting model, quality control is a big issue. We've had some projects in North America that are real disasters as far as the end use.
Right.
And there's no reason for that because the technology is there if the procedures are followed, or maybe the project contracting model has to be structured to put people in responsibility to implement quality control.
Right, right. Do you think the workforce is prepared for the future? And also, you know, there's issues about having enough skilled labor, skilled individuals to carry on the profession as we go forward.
That's been a discussion since the Industrial Revolution started. Where are we going to find people?
Right.
Right? You find people by paying them, treating them fairly, creating a workforce. If you look at the tunnel industry, the predominant staffing mechanism for management is nepotism.
Yeah.
Am I correct?
Right. That's right.
Okay, is people hire relatives and things of this nature because they understand the industry, they know what's required. And so these are the people, a number of companies have the next generation of managers is a relative of upper management person. Our industry is challenging, and there's a whole group of people, it's like the military. There's people out there that like to shoot guns and drill holes or, you know, blow things up, and there's a whole bunch of people
right.
that like the atmosphere that you derive satisfaction from building things. Mm-hmm. I have a saying, the people who require personal motivation, Friday peace, and a pat on the hiney, they don't survive in our business. The people who survive are the ones who derive satisfaction from within. They look at it and say, I helped build that.
Right.
Okay?
Right. Yes, exactly.
We all see that people.
Yeah.
The people willing to work 14, 16 hours a day and think nothing about it.
Do you think the fact that the underground industry being, quote, underground, therefore not visible, this challenge is even greater because people don't understand it, they don't see it until it's finished, and then they don't really understand it.
We all have that problem socially, right? People ask you, what do you do? I'm involved in tunnel business. I never see anything. Yeah, you're not going to see anything because that's the business of what we do.
Exactly.
Yes, we probably as an industry need to do a little better of that. One of the best things I've seen recently is some of the things on YouTube. There's a YouTube video on the project in Hampton Roads that's quite good. It shows the challenges and what they did. And these are the types of things that we need to do or encourage. But most of that can be done. If you talk to the major contractors, they have outreach and they're into public relations. These are the people I would work with because they know what they did, they have access to the details. As far as the UCA trying to set up a separate self-promotion group, I think you have to work with industry to do that because they're the experts. They're the people that you want talking are the guy with the dirty hard act.
The guy that built it.
The guy that built it. Right. Because the guy who built it, when he's talking, you recognize, I don't care who you are, he knows what the hell he's talking about, right?
That's right.
If you have some PR person out there, that comes out quite early that this person is just a PR person. You need the person who actually built the tunnels. When I have my tunnel seminars in Europe, I try to get the people to present are the people who actually built the thing. Yeah. Because that comes out, you understand that. Mm. So we as an industry, we need to do a little better self-promotion because no one sees what we do. But I think if you look at what we're doing, Chesapeake Bay, you know, Washington, D.C., the D.C. WASA thing, it used to be, I remember when the WMATA started down there, one guy had a boat and he said, I would take you out on the boat, but I'm not allowed to be out on the bay down there by Reagan Airport because the treatment plant had an overflow and it was contaminated. Well, now what happened is because of the work of what we did through the tunnel industry, DC WASA, the water now they call themselves, the bay is clear. Mm-hmm. You look at the Great Lakes, this started in the early 80s between Milwaukee, Chicago, Toledo, Cleveland. They all had CSO programs. We've helped clean up the Great Lakes. Now they have fishing and things of this nature. That's what we do as society, benefit society. You have all the greenies you want, but we're actually the people who solve the problem. And the solutions are there. Maybe water on the West Coast. Maybe we need to look at desalination tunnels. Bring the water from the ocean. They've got a whole ocean out there. Bring it in, treat it.
Right. They do it in other parts of the world.
They do it in other parts of the world. Israel survives on desalinated water. So there's solutions, like I mentioned earlier. Fires in California. Put the tunnels underground. Put the tunnels in and put the wires in the tunnels.
Utilidors, basically.
Yeah, Moscow, London, they're doing all that there. So we have solutions that help society. Sometimes I don't think people understand that, but we solve society's problems.
We do, and I think the industry, it hasn't been recognized, the contributions that have been made.
I would agree with that.
In the entire infrastructure system.
Yeah.
Right.
You look at the DC subway system. Very interesting story. People don't know. I'm a bit of a historian. Why did the DC subway, how did it get started? JFK is killed, Johnson becomes president.
Right.
First thing he wants to do is go to Moscow and meet with Khrushchev. They had just completed a Moscow subway. Khrushchev takes Johnson down into the subway, into all this magnificent work that they've done and everything. And he teased Johnson. He said, "You're nothing but a cow town on Washington, D.C." And Johnson, with the ego as big as this building, he was offended. So what does he do? He comes back to Washington, D.C. He calls Stephen Bechtel and his friends at Brown and Root from Texas. Brown and Root becomes the contractor. Stephen Bechtel becomes the engineering manager, and WMATA subway is started. Or you go back to the subway system in LA. Tip O'Neill wanted the Big Dig, Reagan wanted the subway. Irish guys that liked each other, so they had a meeting and they agreed that Tip would get money for the Big Dig, Reagan would get money for the subway. Those are true stories. That's all documented if you read the history.
Right.
But that's what we do. We solve these problems of society. There's a lot of people out there who like to protest and complain about these are things that need to be done, but they really don't have the solutions. Our industry has the solutions to society's problems. There's a whole lot of people here that know what to do. Now it takes money, a hell of a lot of money. We're expensive,
right?
But we're underground. We got big boy toys. I was just told this TBM that was built for San Jose was well north of $50 million. That's staggering money.
It is. Talking about real money.
Real money. So these people who make this investment, the contractors, I admire what they do. Stop and think about this. These are people, he designs a job, they identify it, they come in and you're the owner and you say, okay, we want you to bid this. So you have to come up with the equipment, the people, the solution, and provide a bond, 100% bond. So they're putting equity at risk. Jobs, I remember the subway job used to be $50 million was big. Now we're talking about subway jobs at $1 billion plus. And the contractor has to bond this. That's his risk. We're into serious money. And it takes very skilled people. One of the problems I've seen in our industry, and I talked to the contractor, to find somebody who can manage a $1 billion job. Stop and think about it. You got $1 billion, you got to do it in 36 months. How much money has to be managed in a 36 or 48 month period? As I told one guy, I said, you don't need a project manager, you need a chief financial officer, because you have all this money coming in and all this money going out. And it all has to be managed and controlled. Those are the challenges. The jobs are only going to get more expensive, more complex.
More complex. I think going underground in our cities now is more difficult because of everything that we currently have underground.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be much more congested, and the planning that's going to be necessary to be able to have complex projects built adjacent to existing ones, just as they've had to do in Europe for decades already.
One of the things I see used to be when they did Second Avenue Phase 1, they didn't break out the utilities relocation initially. So the job was delayed for like 2 years till they did a utility relocation. Now they got smarter and they put out a contract to relocate the utilities in advance of the work to be done.
Right.
Let people do what they're good at. Let the utility contractors relocate the utility. Don't let a tunnel contractor who wants to put in a TBM and that, don't make them, force them to do utility work. Let people do what they're good at. And that's up to the role of the owner and the design engineer. That's why I said it takes a knowledgeable owner to have a successful project.
Right. And contract packaging that's necessary.
Contract packaging,
and also at the same time spreading the work so that the locals have their specialty and that's they understand it.
And maybe that happens politically, where that allows them to give work to the local contractors instead of some big contractor from Omaha coming in and taking all the work. There's always a political component to these jobs. Again, that's where the role of the owner comes in. He has to understand the political situation that he's working in.
And also understanding how long it takes to a job to start from cradle to grave is just so long because of the process that we currently have, and if we can do anything to speed that up as well. Where do you think the industry will go in the future relative to whether it be alternative project delivery, whether it be technology, things of that nature?
The technology will come from private enterprise, whether it be, like I said before, Heron Connect to TBMs, the componentry, geotechnical investigation. Private enterprise will solve that problem. The contracting models, that's an interesting question. We're in a transitional stage right now. These things are kind of sorting themselves out on which way to go. Some states you're allowed to do design build, some states you're not. It depends on local regulations. But I think the industry has a reputation of sorting things out in that regard. And I'm not too worried about that.
I think the early contractor involvement is going to continue.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a way of everybody working together for one goal.
Early contractor involvement is fine, but the owners have to step up and realize that if you have early contractor involvement, there may be some downstream costs that were not addressed earlier, and they're going to have to be more flexible.
They were not understood or were uncertainty or what have you. Yes.
Underground is always going to be changes. You're not going to get around it.
Right. You can't.
So owners need to be more flexible.